Most gaming gear doesn't wear out evenly and one weak part makes the whole product unusable. Usually it's the battery, a switch, a hinge or software support that disappears. And after spending over $20,000 testing gear, I found 7 categories where the right product avoids that trap. Some can survive a decade and multiple upgrades, others let you replace the wear part instead of the whole product, starting with something most people overlook. And number 7 is a proper monitor arm, and it earns a place here because almost nothing about its core design can become outdated. It's a spring, a clamp and a VESA plate, no battery, no firmware and no software support to disappear. And that means a quality arm can survive several monitor upgrades while returning every new screen to the same height and distance. Now, for gaming you keep the setup geometry you're already used to, and removing the original stand frees more space for low sense mouse movement. Now the weak point is usually the arm's lift mechanism, which is why matching it properly matters more than the price alone. User monitors weight without its original stand and keep it comfortably inside the supported range. A monitor near the upper limit may sag, while one below the minimum may keep lifting. Then look for proof that the mechanism can last. Ergotron, for example, tests the LX Pro for 10,000 lift cycles and backs it with a 10-year warranty. And that's why a proper arm can outlive several monitors, but only if the desk underneath doesn't flex. Which brings us to number 6, a desk. Now, a solid desk may be the least technological product here, which is exactly why it can last through multiple generations of gaming gear. A rigid frame and a replaceable top have almost nothing to become obsolete, unlike the monitors, PCs and peripherals sitting on them. And for gaming, the value comes from getting 3 things right once: usable depth, the correct height and stability. Enough depth gives you control over monitor distance and space for full arm movement, while a rigid frame keeps the screen from shaking whenever you reset the mouse. Just measure the actual usable surface, because cable trays and monitor mounts can take away more space than the product page suggests. Now mine is the Magnus Pro XL, secretly at least 80 cm of total depth. They test the motors for 20,000 cycles and covers the desk for 5 years. That's solid evidence for an electric desk, but the motors and controllers are still extra failure points. If maximum lifespan is the priority, a fixed steel frame with a top you can replace remains the safer design. But if you want more, yes, I recommend the desk. Now either version can outlive everything placed on it because the core function never changes. And number 5 reaches the same result by removing a component most certain to degrade: the battery. So number 5 isn't just any wired headset, it's a pair of analog headphones designed so the parts that wear can be replaced while the drivers stay in use. Wireless headsets add a battery, charging hardware, wireless electronics and often a proprietary dongle. Any of those can make the headset unusable even when the drivers still sound fine. Now wired headphones avoid those failure points, but the cable, pads and headbands still wear, which is why actual replacement part support matters. Now detachable doesn't automatically mean serviceable either. If the connector or pads are proprietary and the manufacturer doesn't sell replacements, the product only looks modular. So check the parts page before buying, not after something breaks. Now for gaming, of course, they still need reliable direction cues and enough comfort for long sessions, because headphones that last 10 years have no value if you hate wearing them. The wire connection simply adds consistency, no charging, no dongle dependency and no software layer between the headphones and the next PC. Also wired IMs share some of these advantages, but they're a weaker lifetime bet. Replaceable cables and filters help, although moisture, wax, worn connectors and sealed internal drivers make them harder to preserve. And Weston puts their broad average lifespan at around 2 to 5 years. So serviceable headphones survive by keeping working drivers separate from the parts that wear. Number 4 takes the principle even further, because everything inside it is expected to be replaced. And I'm talking about the PC case. Now a good PC case can carry several completely different gaming PCs because the frame doesn't lose performance when the hardware inside becomes outdated. The ATX form factor has existed since the 90s, and standard motherboard, PCU and fan mounts change far more slowly than GPUs and CPUs. Now the cases least likely to last are the ones built around proprietary layouts, custom electronics or dimensions that barely fit today's hardware. Built-in screens can age, unusual mounts can lock you into unavailable parts, and limited clearance can make the next GPU physically impossible to install. But GPU clearance isn't only about length either, you also need enough thickness and space between the power connector and side panel, otherwise a car can technically fit while leaving too little room for the cable to bend safely. Now for gaming, a mesh airflow path helps your cooling hardware work properly, while removable filters and access behind the motherboard save time whenever you clean, troubleshoot or upgrade. Fans and front USB ports may eventually fail, but both can be replaced without discarding the steel or aluminum frame around them. So the case lasts because the permanent structure stays separate from the technology that keeps changing. And number 3 applies the same idea to what everyone else hears. And I'm talking about a dynamic XLR microphone, which can remain useful for decades because the durable analog microphone stays separate from the digital hardware connected to your PC. Now a USB mic combines its capture, conversion electronics, USB controller and sometimes software inside one product. Now with XLR, the microphone remains analog while a separate interface handles the digital conversion. If that interference becomes outdated or stops working, you replace it and keep the mic. The technology already has a real history of of lasting, the original SM7 launched in 1973, and the same microphone family remains in professional use today, even like Michael Jackson used it at some point. Now for gaming, the value is cleaner Discord calls and ranked comms, although dynamic doesn't automatically mean noise cancelling. Most of the benefits come from keeping a directional mic close to your mouth and pointing its least sensitive side towards the keyboard. And of course you don't need like a SM7B, most gamers are better served by a cheaper, less demanding dynamic mic, something like Maono, FIFA or stuff like that. And number 2, less differently, instead of separating the wear part, it moves the wear into something much cheaper. And I'm talking about glass pads. Now, fabric gradually collects sweat, skin oil and thus causing the glide to change even when you clean it. Glass still gets dirty, but cleaning brings it much closer to the surface you originally bought. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now, the pad also survives by moving most of the permanent wear onto the mouse skates, because glass wears these skates faster than cloth, but replacing a $5 to $10 set is easier than replacing the entire pad. And for gaming, that creates a far more consistent glide across the pad and far less variation from humidity. But keep in mind that longevity doesn't automatically make it better for your aim. Most glass pads feel faster and offer less stopping power, so owning one forever is worthless if you perform worse on it. So glass survives by moving wear onto a cheap external part. Number 1 is harder because the wear happens inside the product used most aggressively. Now a gaming mouse is the hardest category to defend here because it has switches, scroll wheel, encoder, cable, PCB and a sensor that can all fail, while also wireless models add on top of all of this a battery. Now my Viper V2 Pro still works perfectly after like 4 years, while my Superlight 2 developed a click fault much earlier, and either model gives me a manufacturer supported solder-free way to replace its main click mechanism. And that's why the closest thing to a lifetime mouse isn't the one with the largest switch durability number. It's a mouse that fits your hand, opens without destructive disassembly and has replacement parts that you can actually buy. And the closest example that I can give you here is the OP18K. It's wired, so there's no battery to worry about, and its main click models are hot swappable, which basically means you can replace them without soldering. And also Endgame Gear sells a universal switch set for around like $20, turning a failed click into a few minutes of work instead of another mouse and another shape to learn. Now the encoder, PCB and sensor can still end the OP1, so this isn't like a proven lifetime product. But the main clicks are among the most heavily used part of any mouse, and in this case their failure doesn't force you to replace everything around them. And that's the closest this category currently gets to buy it for life. Now, none of them are immortal, but each one avoids the weak point trap that turns otherwise good gaming gear into waste. So what's the one piece of gaming gear you've owned the longest and still can't imagine replacing it? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to see more videos about gaming gear in general without the marketing script, check out the next video.